Okay.
So when it comes to pageantry, like definitely didn't sign up for this, but I've had quite a go at trying to figure out what my image is, what it's going to be, what it will be next. And I guess it all started...
Like what? Quite a go.
What do you mean?
What kind of things have you tried?
Oh, everything.
Go on. Go on.
Well,
I'm looking for the list. Is it worse than wearing plasters on your fingers to every casting?
So, MJ.
Like I did, to try and attract attention to myself.
Well, I did almost fuse dreads into my head.
It is worse.
Because I showed up to LA ready to be a serious dancer, having had so much training on the East Coast, which is a bit more about, technical training. It was very based in ballet. So I show up in LA ready to get into the music videos, show up to Brian Friedman's class, for those of you that know him, and realized in my slick back bun and my leotard
What do you call them?
tights.
You call them something, what is it called?
What?
What do you say? What do you...
Bunhead.
A bunhead. That's it.
A bunhead.
A bunhead.
Yes. And I walked into like a classroom of fashionistas with like the craziest hair, loads of different colors, clothes that were just tattered and all sort of, styled out. But yeah, they all had a vibe to them.
You did not have that vibe.
I had no vibes.
So you thought, I'm gonna fuse dreads into my head.
Well, I was a big fan of Mia Michaels. Mia Michaels is an incredible choreographer in LA. She's worked on So You Think You Can Dance for years and years and years. She had blonde dreads, and I thought it was really cool.
To be fair, you would look cool with blonde dreads. You would look cool.
I mean, I made the appointment. I was ready. I was 100% committed.
Wow.
And then on the day, I even went to get like a little consultation so they could have a look at my head and see how they go about it.
They said, no, it's too small.
Yeah, probably. It would help make my head look a bit bigger.
That head is
This
too
is a problem
small.
with my image, is my tiny pea head. But yeah, the day of the appointment, I chickened out.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
I mean, to be fair, you've got quite enough talent, so I imagine that you don't have to go quite as far to get yourself noticed when you dance as well as you do, babe. Brian Friedman got there in the end, didn't he?
It's true. I guess I then went to more about, I found my image through losing some weight, getting into lots of street dance classes, unlocking my ballerina self and finding a bit more oomph within me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was just being able to dance like crazy to be able to shine enough. And, start cutting my shirt so that I could have one shoulder out. Every audition was like, show all of your skin. So I'd show up in like a bra and like fishnets over the top and tiny shorts and heels, because every class was in heels, and realized, oh, that's where I belong, is in heels. That's what makes me stand out the most. Because of my contemporary ballet background, being able to do street the way that I do and then have the contemporary legs and stuff, I was like, oh, that's what's going to get me booked. And it did.
I can kind of relate in a similar way. I've obviously showed up with a different kind of talent. It's sort of how you learn. There is a craft to modelling. Obviously, there is a craft. You have to be able to do it. But in order to get recognised, you don't have any kind of dance talent to put out in front of you. In the room where you're casting, you are literally just looking the way you look, and that is all you've got. When you get to work, there's stuff to show about how good you are, and you may get rebooked as a result of that. But you do have to do certain stuff to stand out. And I used to wear tape on my fingers like Michael Jackson. And I just did it like a couple of times once for a laugh or something. And I went to a casting in it, and somebody said to me, oh yeah, we remembered you because you're the guy who wears tape on his fingers.
Crazy.
And I was like, right, I'm just going to do that every single day, because they may not remember me because of the tape on my fingers, but they might do. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and it usually started a conversation. What's happened to your fingers? I'd say nothing. And some people would probably not book me as a result of this kind of weirdness. But I did start to get like booked and understood. I used to wear a belt that was made of rope as well. And there's still people in New York who was like, yeah, we remember you. You're the guy with the rope belt. Where's the rope belt, Max? And it's little details like that just stand you out just a tiny little bit. The dreads would have been your one.
Yeah.
And it does really actually matter. I think it really, really helped. And then obviously there's the sort of, they'd be like micro situations. There's the macro ones, like my hair. Like when I had the big curly hair, nobody else had the big curly hair, so that was the thing that Tom Ford put on the cover. Mm-hmm. That was
it's not the only thing he put on the cover.
He put some stuff on the cover, didn't he?
How do you stand out? Take your clothes off, Max.
Clothes off. Yeah, image-wise, it's fairly easy for me.
Because when we first started dating, the first thing I saw was that GQ cover of you naked, and it said, Max is naked. Why do we care? No, what did it say?
Why do we care?
Why do we care?
So why do we have a problem with
Why
that?
do we have a problem
Why do we
with
care?
that?
We don't care. We don't care. But look at that haircut. Isn't that great?
God. But I love the story about your little merkin. Explain what a merkin is.
A merkin is a pubic wig. Should we do this on nudity?
We could.
We should do. So let's do it. We're going to do an episode on nudity, guys.
Then we'll talk about your merkin.
And we're going to talk about a merkin. And in the meantime, Google merkin, and you'll have there'll be a little hint into what's coming.
So I think for me with image, like the biggest thing that I've always had to sort of fight was my weight. It was like my first job was working on cruise ships. It was quite depressing. I was away from my tiny little town in Europe, living on the sea. And I had a hard time. I gained a lot of weight and I could not keep it under control. To the point that they put the whole cast on weight call and everybody had to get weighed in just so they could check me. Aww. The reason being is because I was popping out of my costumes.
You sort of start off going, oh, and then you think, well, actually, if you're popping out of the costume, that's not ideal, is it?
It's not ideal.
No, it's a factor, isn't it? I mean, like, it does matter. Like, if you're not fitting in it, for me, again, it's the same. If you don't fit into the clothes, they can't picture you in the clothes.
For the chosen careers that we've had, and it was at a time where it really did matter. Like, it was a huge part of what you had to take care of in order to keep booking jobs.
It's very interesting that you say it was at a time.
Yeah.
Because it was at a time where, what was it they asked you to be in the dolls?
Anorexic aliens.
Anorexic aliens is what we were looking for.
I was going to get there because first, it was like I arrived to LA, didn't I?
Okay, we're back to LA.
We're back to LA because I'm in a timeline of having to deal with my weight.
We're doing this chronologically.
Yes. And we will get to anorexic aliens in a moment.
Aliens. It's on its way, trust me.
So I arrived to LA and I need to live somewhere, obviously. But I didn't realize just how expensive the rent was going to be. I was like, it'd be like 300, 400 pounds a month. No, it was like 1,200 pounds for a studio flat. I didn't have that kind of money. So I looked at all the dance studios looking for like roommates. Nobody was looking for roommates. I was at a lull. So I found
not ones that have been put on weight call in their cruise ship crew anyway. God.
But on Craigslist, I think it was, Craig's lovely list, I found an ad saying that you could live in this beautiful house in Brentwood, which is a really well-off place.
Oh, God, are we doing this story?
Yeah, we're going in.
Okay.
Because it has to do with weight, doesn't it? And this was the...
Sort of. Yeah, okay, yeah, go on.
Oh, do you want the whole thing or do you want the paraphrase?
We can't do this story without just with just the bit.
Oh, right. So I see this ad.
Okay, we're going in.
We're going in.
Strap in, guys. This could be the last episode.
Brentwood, and you can stay there rent-free, but you have to sort of do maid duties, keep the place clean. So I make an appointment with this person, and I arrive in Brentwood for our 7 p.m. meeting, leave my mum at the hotel to go to this meeting.
I never knew your mum was there for this.
She's at the hotel.
My God, Okay, go on.
19 years old. Mm-hmm. I show up. I'm going by in Brentwood on this street. There are mansions everywhere. Like, it is a very well-off place, and I was very much in awe. I finally get to where I'm supposed to be. I walk up to the door, and this door opens, and this guy's standing there. I was like, he looks really familiar. But I just couldn't quite figure out where I knew him from. Mm-hmm. So he invites me in. He's basically like a t-shirt and boxer shorts, I swear. Mm-hmm.
These days we know where this is going.
LA.
You didn't at the time, but you knew where it was going now. Yeah.
So I'm laughing now, but it was interesting at the time. So then he comes in and he's telling me that, he's really well off because he's a well-known actor, may have seen some of his work, and he's just been really lucky within being able to work as much as he does. And he goes on to say that he lives a bit of an open house, and he has another girl that lives there that's a lesbian, but they just have this agreement where they can both walk around naked, and she can join him in the shower or he can join her, and it's just kind of an okay thing. And continues to progress into the fact that he does Playboy shoots at the house. And, would you ever be interested in doing Playboy? And what do you think of your body? Stand up. Let me see your tummy. 19-year-old naive me stands up. And I'm like, yeah, what do you think? I mean, I felt really uncomfortable, but at the same time, I was like, well, maybe he really does want to help me.
Maybe he does. Maybe he does. Maybe he's just a really nice guy.
Oh, God. I wanted to believe in humanity.
Good for you. You're a really nice girl, and that's lovely. Go on. Go on.
So he's telling me that he does a lot of photo shoots with Playboy. He's got a very good friend that's another huge actor that they go on like trips to Las Vegas to the lake, and they take some of their lovely
the guy's a big actor.
Friends.
The guy's a big actor. We know him. We're not going to say his name because that would be the last time you ever see us.
It would hurt him, which is kind of crazy.
It would hurt you. That's the weird thing about this situation. If we said his name now, you would never work again. He'd be fine.
But I feel like people at this point are like, what do you mean? Like, all you did was show your tummy. It progresses.
It gets worse.
Then he's telling me that his next door neighbor is Pamela Anderson, and she has this really cool DVD. Do I want to see it? We know what DVD this is now, but at the time, no idea.
You didn't know what DVD he was talking about.
So he goes and gets a glass of wine, and I'm still sitting there on the couch. He's sort of sitting next to me. I'm sitting here, and the TV is where you are. And so I'm having my wine. He puts the DVD on. I'm like, oh my God, it's Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson having sex. This is really weird. I'm stunned at this point. I'm absolutely in shock. I don't know what to do. I feel a bit unsafe. So I just sort of keep watching it, trying to figure out what my next move is going to be. Then I hear something happening next to me. And I finally decide to look over as he's saying, you can touch it if you want. And he's jacking off next to me. Mm-hmm. Full on jacking off. Comes all over his leg. And then continues to tell me, for my age, look how healthy my sperm is. And
yeah, from a science perspective, it was a real eye-opener.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, that's kind of how it ended.
Yeah.
Realized that, he was talking about Playboy and how, I'd need a tummy tuck and I need really big boobs and a boob job and how he could hook me up with all of this stuff.
So that was the loose, tenuous link that she was going to tell you about. That was it. She wasn't going to tell the rest of that story. She was just going to say that this guy also recommended she has a tummy tuck.
But the thing is that, like, being a dancer, like I was, you moved to somewhere like Van Nuys. It's the porn capital of the world. This was something that was a continuous thing in my life that I had to sort of face. Not the jacking off bit, but like, are you going to get your boobs done? Are you going to get your tummy tuck? Are you going to show your tits for a lot more money?
Do you think it would help?
Yeah. I mean, going to Vegas for an audition before I got the cruise ships gig, the first thing I was asked was, will you show your tits? Because if you do, you can make $300+ more a week. And you literally just stand there like as a showgirl, just showing them off. But the ones that are like sweating, dancing and whatnot are making less. So it's not ideal really.
No.
But I did end up, I left, I was safe, I was okay. There was a moment where I was driving home like, I don't have much money. How am I going to make this happen? Don't know where to live. Could I live there, put a lock on the inside of my bedroom door, do the cleaning up, do the auditions, quickly like give myself 2 or 3 months just to find another situation and then spread my wings? But luckily...
Your choice of words sometimes, babe.
Oh, dear.
You wouldn't have been... the point was you wouldn't have been spreading anything.
I'm very proud to say I did not live with this person. But anyways, I was at the cinema and watching a film, and then a person showed up, and I was like, jaw dropped. Oh, my God, that's the guy.
Him.
And he was a major actor. Still is. I can't watch any of his films.
No. It's annoying because some of them are good.
I know. But I survived to tell the tale.
So I don't watch porn in this house. I watch those films on my own secretly, just so that I can enjoy the film.
But yeah, I quickly learned that you like have to have your morals, don't you? And you have to make some serious choices, especially as a dancer, because you're always going to be faced with the tits question and how far you will go. And
we are like as we sort of touched on, you create a product of yourself, and you want to present as good a product as possible to make as good a living as you possibly can. It's like if you basically, if we're talking about Heinz beans, they make their beans can look as appealing as possible. We're the can.
Yeah, you made your Heinz beans can look really good. Yes. So I'm over here trying to keep my clothes on. You're over there taking them off.
That's it. Listen, if you want to see the can, here's the can. But that's basically our job. That's what you do. And so you can... It's not like to a certain extent, that's the difference between that and having a non-public eye job. I don't like saying normal job because our jobs are normal as well. Every job is normal, but it's having a non-public eye job is it doesn't matter quite so much, but you still wear a suit to work or brush your hair or do something to make yourself presentable. You lean into clients and the way they are. Like, that's basically what we're doing to a especially for me, it's literally that's the main part of my job. So you work on things a little bit more, and there are the questions of, well, if you did have a boob job, like, yeah, ethically, morally, all those things, we can talk about all that sort of stuff, but if it makes you better at your job, is that okay?
So it's a double-edged sword, that one.
It is because you are also a person. It's a personal
choice, ultimately.
You are also a person, you know.
I remember Carmen Electra telling her stories, because Prince kind of created Carmen Electra. Otherwise, she's Tara. Can't remember her last name. She was brilliant. She did lots of shows with the dolls, but there are always these stories about how Prince always expected her to keep eyelashes on. Like, sleep in your false eyelashes, live in false eyelashes. It's part of your image. And definitely as I became a Pussycat doll, there was this whole new image that was sort of not thrust upon me. I was quite excited. Like, the biggest, most badass I'd ever felt was my first dolls show, feeling like an absolute rock star with full makeup and hair and lashes and bras and fishnets and stilettos. Like, when that curtain opened, I just about, like, creamed myself. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. But then, as the dolls became bigger and we got our recording deal, the label really wanted to transform it to have more of an urban feel. And this was a real turning point for me when it comes to image. Because I met Andrea Lieberman, who does a lot of styling for Gwen Stefani. I think that's where she sort of came from, because Gwen's the reason we even had a recording deal in the first place. So she came into a rehearsal, and I often stay after rehearsals to help with choreography and costumes and all sorts. So I was there late all by myself with Andrea.
Because you had nowhere to live.
Yeah, still living on the street. And we were chatting, and she was just kind of mining me for information about the girls and who they are, so that she could really give them the right vibe. And so she looked at me, she was like, you just have such a sweet face and such a sweet voice. Like, we need to give you an edge. We need to toughen you up. So the next day we go to do the Donja video, and I have the most amazing hairstylist, Orbe.
I love Orbe. I love Orbe. He did my hair for Tom Ford, actually.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
Not for the cover, for a campaign that we did shortly after.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Loved
Orbe. He's amazing. Such a nice presence.
So there I was in the hair chair, and he's, giving me the cornrows up the sides and into this massive mohawk. So I came in like girly girl wearing my pink Uggs and pink velour tracksuit, and came out like an absolute rock star.
There you are.
And I was fighting for my spot because I had such bad acne. Oh, I had really bad acne, like cystic acne, to the point that the label, Robin, everybody involved with the dolls was like, I don't know if you're going to make the cut unless you get this under control.
And that's image.
Yeah.
Talent's there. They've created a look, but your image might not fit.
That face, on the other hand.
This face might not work for us.
It never was about my face before that. It was the way I could move. Now I was like, shit.
Yeah.
I need to look pretty.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it under control, really. Then the label and everybody was really supportive in me going to see a doctor and getting on serious amounts of Accutane, which just...
this is interesting. So where obviously that's intervention, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could argue that it's medical intervention, whereas a boob job isn't medical intervention, but you probably wouldn't have got it if it wasn't for work.
No.
So then we talk about, well, if they'd have said to you, listen, you've got everything you need, but your tits are too small. Like, do you go and get a boob job?
I mean, there was a bit of that, but...
Yeah. Yeah. Not surprised.
Luckily, Punk Doll, I didn't need big tits for that. So
that's it. But then they created Punk Doll for you, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which was a whole separate image that really just sat with you.
Oh.
And actually probably created an identity for lots of other people who perhaps had more in common with you than the anorexic aliens that the industry required at the time. And it was people like you said. Pink was a massive inspiration.
I was just thinking of that.
She kind of created she was the first one, or in our generation, to create a platform that meant that punk doll was viable.
And I loved Pink. Like, as a teen, I would listen to her music. I loved her vibe. I loved that she was a bit edgy. I love that she was so incredibly talented. And so when I was sort of given punk doll, I had a lot to learn about what punk even meant, which made me go into a lot about Vivienne Westwood and the Sex Pistols and her shop Sex and everything. But it gave me license to really find who I felt I was best to serve as a pussycat doll, which was having edge, having like, I'm a full out dancer. I give everything when I'm on stage, and being able to be punk doll gave me license to just really go for it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Thanks to Orbe and Andrea Lieberman.
And
I continued to remain a doll.
In a weird way, you got to sidestep image by creating an image.
Yeah.
And there's always an image, isn't there? There's always something. But in your case, you were lucky that it was drawn from you.
Yeah.
Like it was you were that talented that they were like, right, okay, let's look at these, let's put these pieces together, let's draw that from her, and let's create this. It's like it becomes a heightened version of yourself. Mm-hmm. Which it still is to a certain extent. That's where you can snap into punk doll, and you can always snap into your characters because they're heightened versions of yourself, which is kind of what it all is in a way. Even with persona, like if I walk into a shoot, I won't be the same as I am when we're sat watching movies on a Friday night with a family. Sure. There'll be there's a confident, sometimes maybe a little bit arrogant version of myself that steps onto set that is in there. It's part of me, but I just tap into that and use that and have created and gradually molded that image.
I guess for me too, I was such a shy girl. Like
What did Cedric the Entertainer called you? Tremble, didn't he?
Tremble, yeah.
Tremble?
Tremble.
She's just trembling all the time.
I was always quite shy. I didn't like to speak up too loud. I didn't like to talk a whole lot. I just wanted to get the job done. And it was all about dance for me. Whereas now I'm a pop star, and like I needed to find a way to be a pop star and really shine. And it gave me the license to be a bit more full out.
Clean up that can of beans.
Clean up can of beans.
Yeah. Going back to the Heinz thing.
Right.
Looking for a Heinz deal. If anybody's interested. We talk a lot about Heinz.
Oh, jeez.
That's 3 times. It's probably illegal by now. But then with the Pink thing as well, that whereas back then the label had asked you to be anorexic aliens, because everybody was an anorexic. That was the look.
And you know what? This story it keeps resurfacing as this horrible thing that the label said to you, and can you believe it? Why didn't you throw back against them? But the label was just representing the industry.
Yeah, they were just saying this will sell.
They were they were desperate to make this work. They took a real gamble on the Pussycat Dolls, and Don't You was a huge song at the time. It was the most requested song at radio, not as our song, somebody else's, but the girl she wasn't selling. Yeah. So they took this song, gave it to us, and was like, you guys have to drive this. This is your chance to make it globally. And, it was Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears and, Pink, and all these amazing women were incredibly successful pop stars. But their aesthetic and their amazing tummies and their image was a huge part of how they were able to make them successful. Yeah. And so they wanted the same for us. And that came down for them to look like anorexic aliens. So you can sell music. And
at that point, you have a choice to say, no, I'm okay. I always say that. It's like... my hair, when they cut my hair, it was like a story, like it was like involved all these people around the world, all these agencies, and all this, like there was a press campaign and all this communication, and when we're going to do it, and well, he's got this shoot here and there's that shoot there, and my German agent wanted me to cut my hair, and my Italian agent didn't want me to cut my hair, so my New York agent was jumping in, and it was like it was madness. And I'm just sort of sat there, and at that point I realized it's not even my what if I want to shave my hair? No, you don't own it. You don't own your image anymore. You've got advisors, and they are only advisors. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. They're advising you to say, look, if you do this, you might work more. Do you want to work more? And you think, well, yeah, I do. I like my hair, but I'm going to go with it. And that's the same sort of thing that you faced. In print, it looks horrendous.
I mean, luckily, I was the kind of person that was like, I'm not going to go create an eating disorder. I'm going to take this as every day I got up, me and Ashley went to Dove's Bodies to work out at 9:30 a.m. Dove's Bodies. And then lived on tuna and grapefruit and just tried my best to eat really healthy foods. Looking back, I didn't really actually make the greatest, healthiest choices.
Well, you might not have known. That's the other thing as well, isn't it?
No,
there's an
know.
education involved in that, in trying to do things like that.
Yeah.
And people, especially back then, just didn't. Now it's easy. You go on Instagram, you find a PT that you like, and you follow their advice. You didn't have that then.
And I was on the line, like I was on the firing line. I was gonna get booted out. They didn't even. There was a potential. I mean, if you look back, Pussycat Dolls, Don't You video, I'm not in one single group shot, except for the big dancing scenes, and I am
You're
so
way at
far
the back
back
with only one shoe on.
But in my socks because I lost my heels on sliding down on my tummy because I was being a badass to save my role in the group.
That's a good story. You knew at that point that you were not going to make the cut.
Yeah.
And so
Chopping
you knew
block.
you had to do something. This makes me so proud.
I came for
love
blood.
this story. You were like, I have to do something that they can't cut out of the video. So the scene when Kim is sliding down the banister wasn't in the choreo or anything like that. You just did it. And it wasn't a real banister either. It was a lot steeper than a banister would be. So it was pretty dangerous.
There was quite a big drop on the other side.
And because they hadn't really scripted that, the choreography carries on from there. It's not like there's a cut and a stop. They carry on doing it. So during the sliding down, your shoe comes off.
Both of them.
Both shoes come off. Was it? No, I'm sure you had one heel on, didn't you?
No, it was
Or
both
was it
heels
both?
came off.
Anyway, freeze frame, and you can check for that for sure.
You have to look really closely because I'm way
you're right at the back.
back.
But no one was going to cut because the
socks.
girl who's not even going to be in it anymore has lost her shoes. Yeah. But they can't really cut her out of the video because she slid down the thing. So she's way in the back in her socks, killing it. And that's how you got in the...
I'll tell you what, like image and bringing it and bringing a vibe that, you know, when I went to do that video, it's like, I have to show them that they can't do this without me.
Yeah.
And I felt like once I'd finished, I gave my blood, sweat, and tears to that video, and it worked.
And it worked.
Yes.
That, in a sense, is an image in itself, isn't it? You don't mess, and even you don't mess with you even now when it comes to your work.
I guess that's where my bravado and my like tenacity to go out there and make things happen and not be afraid to fail. Like it probably comes from that pivotal moment in my career.
Yeah.
Fighting for what I felt was that was my destiny. Don't you dare take it away from me.
I'm not going back to that dude's house to watch porn.
Yeah. I'll do 50 microdermabrasions.
Yeah, whatever it takes. I'll do one of my boobs. Yeah. I don't care.
Just let me live the dream.
Keep me out of that house.
And then later, I guess when we came back for a second album, I felt like I needed to do something else to refresh that vibe and still come back with something. And I went to the most amazing hairstylist in LA. And bless him, he had had a stroke at the time. He was quite a bit older. And he had a whole side was shaking. So his scissors were really shaking as he gave me this amazing, super blonde pixie cut.
Did he mean to, or was that?
No, of course he did. He was lovely. But that pixie cut, again, hair image, like it sent shockwaves. Like I came to the UK and then it seemed like everybody was cutting their hair like that. Victoria Beckham had a similar hairstyle. Soon Miley Cyrus had the same hairstyle. And I was in every hairstyle magazine out there. Yeah. It became like a thing.
So was I.
High five.
We're hairfluencers.
Our image comes from changing our hair.
Yeah,
that's our
haircuts.
reinvention of image.
Yeah, that was it. We're known for our hair.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You've got a little bit of talent to add on top as well.
And then it was the leg.
Oh, of course, the leg. Oh, yeah, well, the leg is kind of an image as well, isn't it?
Massively. Like, again, I guess it was that same don't you tenacity.
But that in itself, it creates... You created your inner image out of talent, which is a really difficult thing to do because you have to be incredibly talented to get away with that. Mm-hmm. But even then, you still had to cut a mohawk and you still had to do these things. And that's what I'm interested in. It's because it's like you...
Well, because it wasn't about me. It was never really about me. It was about what image you could create with 5 girls or 6 girls on stage. Yeah. And I always saw myself as that. It wasn't about how am I going to shine the most. It was like, how can I serve the Pussycat Dolls?
And that's it. If it was a cartoon... They would create, nowadays it would be a lot more diverse than it was then, but they would create something for everybody in each character. And effectively, that's what they had. They
That
had a
was the
blueprint.
idea.
You had to fit into one of them.
Yeah.
And that's what you...
United Colors of Benetton. That's how the label, I remember, explained it. Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, then it came to like, when I grow up, this is another big comeback. We've been shelved. We're like, are we ever going to do another song together again? And then finally the chance came back, and we're doing When I Grow Up. And it was again like Out for Blood. Like, we need to make this a worldwide success. And that's, we were in the doing choreography, Mikey, Minden, and myself, and came up with this moment. He was like, we need a leg moment. And I went home and dreamt about grabbing my leg over my head, yanking it to the side, and creating the tilt.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. And now there's like logos designed after it, and you know,
It connected me with the dance world all around the world, because never before had like a pop group stood for dance as much as it did for the music that they make. And so it really became a sign for me, to the point that Jimmy Iovine, Interscope Records, he, in his office, there's, you know, that really famous picture of John Lennon with his arms folded in New York City. So actually the full picture of that is Jimmy Iovine standing next to him. Then they cut Jimmy Iovine and made that huge. So he had that picture. Wasn't right. Maybe. He had that picture on the wall in his office, and then a picture of 50 Cent, who was massive at the time. And it wasn't there, but the story goes that he had the picture of me and my leg tilt and put that on the wall and told somebody, now that is talent. And I was like, that story's going to live with me forever. My image became there. Jimmy Iovine's office next to 50 Cent, John Lennon.
One day I'm going to talk about this on a podcast. Yeah. A journey from being put on wait call on cruise ships.
Names everywhere.
Wait call on cruise ships to Jimmy Iovine's office.
We're winning.
Brilliant.
Image today, I think, has really transformed in a positive way.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about anorexic aliens was where we were before.
Yeah.
And if you were an anorexic alien now, it wouldn't necessarily fit the image now, which is why I say that's why where do you draw the line with what you do for your image?
Well, with social media, there's been so much more awareness of people.
But if you cut your body, if you have surgery, you might have had surgery to look like an anorexic alien and now be out of date.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have been a successful model in the late 80s because the image has changed since then. The required, and that's the thing. The image is sold to us, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't, everyone thinks that they know what they like. You've been sold what you like. I promise you, I've been in the business of doing it. It's what it is. And nowadays we have a much probably healthier, more diverse image that we're allowed to be. There are more pinks out there than offering a chance for other people to have the right image.
I think social media has allowed us, in a positive light, social media does a lot of negativity, but in a positive light, has allowed a platform for people to speak up and for there to be an awareness of representation and how important that is. And you see people like Lizzo, who's doing the Big Girls Club, and it's like, oh, she's so important because it's representation for women and people that just have a bit of a different image that's never really been given a platform to shine. Yeah, I mean, in that way.
And now you've got, so where your story was, you needed someone like Pink to validate your space in the Pussycat Dolls in order to create someone. Now there are so many more examples of people that give other people a chance who have the talent that you had. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, it's not like the talent's not going to get me anywhere. It actually might now because there's a platform. Youngblood,
I mean, he is an image, isn't he? Yeah, well, and he is representation it's okay to be different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so much more of that now. And even the differences back then were chosen differences. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was the 80s, the Guns N' Roses and stuff, and the punks and all that. It was still like, okay, but we're still going to market this. Now it's like anyone, a lot more people have a chance.
And I mean, back then it was about being unattainable, almost being mythical, being untouchable. Now, you're almost expected to be ordinary accessible enough to be seen on social media.
We want to see what you had for breakfast.
Things. Yeah.
And that's because of social media to a certain extent. So it does have its plus sides. But we'll talk about all the crap that it brings to us in another episode.
Shall we do some questions from our amazing people that have given some questions?
Shall I start? I had some serious questions this week.
Did you?
Yeah, they've all grown up.
I'm proud of your platform.
They've grown up since last week. Yeah, they've all matured. Thanks, guys. What are we going to do? Okay. Katie Cork 2019 says, what's the worst/hardest part about keeping up your image? For me, it is that thing that I touched on. Not if I suddenly start liking a haircut or being clean shaven, as soon as you become attached to it, you might have to grow the beard out or cut the hair, and that is it. It's you do have to sort of check your ego and your own version of who you want to be at the door in order to provide or be prepared to provide what they want. That can be tough, not all the time, but that's what I find tough.
I think mine's been the transfer from pre-social media to post-social media. Pre-social media, it was about getting ready for a performance, whereas now it's like, who are you?
Yeah.
What is your style? Well, if I'm judging on Got to Dance, it's a major look with a whole glam team. If I'm doing MasterChef or cooking, it's more me when I'm at home kind of cooking, which was not something I did a whole lot. So I had to like figure that out.
And you have a persona. You have like almost like a wardrobe for each of these.
Yeah.
And you don't.
It's almost like a different character
it's all upstairs.
of me.
Oh my God, it is all upstairs. Yeah.
But I try my best to be more sustainable. Sustainability.
Yeah, you are. You're doing very.
I'm very
well.
good.
You are very good.
Comparison.
But that's the thing. In trying to be sustainable, that's probably the worst thing. Trying to be sustainable.
Hardest
You've
thing.
got 15 personas up there that you've got to go and dress for.
No, but I was gonna say, I feel like now that I've had all my kids, I know where I live. I know what my life is here.
You've had my kids as well.
We've had our kids.
Mad how she's done that.
Well, I was thinking of my image, my situation.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time to figure out where I sort of fit in and who I am living in the UK, living in Surrey, being a mum, also working on stage and in the limelight.
That what you just said previously, before social media, didn't require you to have an image to do the school run.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really require you to have an image, but you are also, because of social media, out there as a
work previously was taking me here, there, and everywhere around the world, and a glam team was always such a huge part of it. Whereas now that I've landed, like, I do my own hair and makeup a lot of the time. I do my own styling. I found a way to, just be comfortable enough to where we are now to feel like I'm making real choices rather than choices for a performance.
So the worst part, as you just heard, is that she has to do her own makeup.
That's not what because I've always done.
No, that's what you said.
Oh, fine. People do find it interesting though that, like, especially in the dolls, we always did our own makeup.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
and hair.
Yeah,
on tour and stuff. There was a glam squad, obviously, for videos and whatnot, but that's always been a huge part of my life.
It's part of a performer's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doing the makeup backstage.
If you're Cardi B, she ain't touching nothing because you see those nails.
How does Cardi B the shopping?
Life. How does she get around
wipe? Tesco's? How does she wipe? Yeah, Cardi.
She must be really good with her knuckles.
How do you wipe? Okay.
But image is so huge. Like Kim Kardashian's and Cardi B's, there's a lot of people out there that the image is so extravagant that I wonder how they live normal lives.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to do one?
Yeah, I want to do a question.
Go on then.
How much power do celebs have? Seems like some are told to do stuff by team.
We kind of covered that. It like the sweet spot, I think, and this probably isn't true for everybody, and not everybody perhaps wants it, but for me personally, I like it when I'm getting advice on what might work, and then from that I get the choice to sort of make a move with regards to image, and that means it comes from somewhere I would be anyway. Like, for example, I got told once I was getting too big, too heavy, too muscly. And that's because I enjoyed training. I just got advised, listen, if you get too big, you're not going to fit into the clothes and you're going to get less work. So I just sort of toned it down. But I kept training. I just adapted my training. So I felt like that was teamwork. They giving you advice to offer the best can of beans, the best product. But it would have been sort of where you'd be going anyway, and I think that's the sweet spot. I don't think that's true for everybody, but it is certainly for me, and it kind of is for you as well.
It is now, yeah. It wasn't back then. There was definitely a team and a Robin Anton always had sort of the final say because it's her brand ultimately.
And she's got the vision of the 5 in front of her as well. That's what,
Or 6, depending.
Or 6, yeah.
Whereas now, I feel like I'm pretty much fully in my own power of my choices with image. The only thing that I feel like I fight against quite often is when I'm working on a show and they're like, we want you to come in looking like a pussycat doll. So, I get all dolled up, looking quite sexy. I'll walk in, they're like, oh, I don't know, it's just a bit too sexy. Too sexy is something that comes into my life a lot.
You're banned from China for being too sexy, aren't you?
Yeah, well, the dolls were at one time, yeah.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing ever.
It's quite cool.
Visa declined for being too sexy.
It's true. And now every time I go for a visa, you have to say if you've ever been turned down for a visa and the reasons why. Yes, I have been turned down by China for being too sexy.
Yeah, exactly. So what did CBBC think when they were calling you up saying dress as a pussycat doll?
That's not where it happened, actually.
That's not where it happened. No.
That was a good
Sorry,
caveat.
CBBC.
Yeah, we love CBBC.
Okay, I've got another one.
That was I'm Jura, by the way. Thank you
I'm
very
Jura,
much.
thank you. I've got one from Dancing Mum. Do you have, and this is just not really anything to do with celeb image, but I just really want to answer this question. Do you have any secretaries to run your diaries or cleaners? I work full time, kids, house, no time for yoga. Feel ya? The answer is
no.
No.
We do it all ourselves.
We get up very early. We train. We do the school runs. We just
I would love to have a cleaner.
Our youngest is now in nursery, which gives us a few extra hours a day, but we work in the evenings. We somehow juggle it.
But I would say, like, cleaning your own house keeps you grounded.
I like cleaning my own house.
This is true.
I wouldn't mind a cleaner every now and then
I'd
when
fight
it gets
for a
out of
cleaner
control.
all day long.
But actually, I think it's important to clean your own house.
I get that.
It can get difficult with 3 kids, but that's just it. Life, it's challenging sometimes.
One day, a cleaner every 2 weeks would be great.
So that's the sweet spot, I think. One day,
please.
We have had nannies.
Send
we have
help
had cleaners.
soon.
We have had assistants over the years.
Yeah.
Hello, Alan. I hope you're listening, mate. And it's worked out really well. And it was for a time. You were running. You had a cosmetics company, and we had a management agency, and so you need somebody to pick up admin and stuff like that. But we're in a position where we can.
But I also realize I'm not very good at like having an assistant. Like I loved Alan, but I didn't know how to delegate.
Yeah.
I'm better just doing it all.
Yeah.
Not because he wasn't good, but because I'm mentally like I don't know how to.
A lot of it's creative what we do as well, and that comes from you, and then you can bring people in to a certain extent. But when it comes to actually running our lives, no, we do it ourselves.
Yeah,
and it's
Time
it's
Tree.
Tough.
Time Tree app has been a revelation lately.
Time Tree.
To stay on top of family, stay on top of career and
business.
This is not
a sponsored post, but Time Tree is amazing.
Get in, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't read your writing, babe.
MLVCS_BTCH. Great
Milks, name. Bitch. Have any other big celebs given you any
secret tips?
Secret tips. Ooh, I've got a good one.
Should we close off with a good story?
Well, one time at band camp. No. Where was I? It was the Grand Prix.
I don't know where you were. Monaco?
Monaco. We're at Monaco. It was all the dolls and the label. And there was like Bono there, and I saw Jude Law.
Ding,
just keep dropping some names. And we were invited back to Jay-Z's penthouse suite to hang out. So we went, we were hanging out on the balcony, and I will always treasure this moment. Jay-Z came and he was standing next to me, and I was like, oh my God, savor this moment. Ask something intelligent, please, because this moment's not going to last very long.
Yeah. What does the Z stand for?
Shush. So I asked him, like, how do you stay driven when you have accomplished so much and, obviously made so much money? How do you stay driven? And we looked out over the horizon as the sun was rising. And he said, because you know that if you don't stay driven, it will be gone in the blink of an eye. I don't know, that really put me in like a space of, even as successful as someone as Jay-Z still has to stay on his grind, because he knows that if he's not, it could go away like that. Mm-hmm. And I liked that.
And he's named after a train line that I used to live next to.
I'm glad you could add to that.
Yeah, so I've got a Jay-Z story as well.
I'd asked him a few other questions, but that was the one that landed the most.
Did you ask him if he knew me?
No, I didn't.
Have you seen this guy around? He's got hair.
Thank you for listening to this week's The Fame Game. Now, before you go, make sure to hit subscribe or follow, and that means you're first to know of next week's episode. You can follow us at Kimberly Wyatt and at Max Rogers UK. See you next time.